Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, a Chicago Cubs and baseball podcast hosted by two comedians who love the Cubs but live in New York. I am one of them. I'm Adam Mamawala, and I'm here with the other one, Kevin McCaffrey. How's it going?
Oh, it's fine. I'm like Kris Bryant, feeling under the weather, not sick wise. I took like 4 flights in the last couple of days.
Really testing out that vaccine, huh?
Really putting the pedal to the metal on it. But yeah, I'm all right. Everyone,
Have you been traded? Did you get traded in the middle of a flight?
I'm trying to think what in my life, whether I'd be more likely to be traded to a contender or someone rebuilding. And it's hard to say right now. And to the best of my knowledge, I've not. I'm here in Queens still.
That is a very funny concept. Like you're a comic at the Comedy Cellar and they're like, listen, you're great, but like, we gotta trade you to a rebuilding team so we can restock our comedians.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably where it would be. It's like, Kevin, look, you're a guy, you're on TV sometimes still with those reruns. You had the late night spot a few years ago. Look, you're a solid veteran, but we're going to turn it over a little bit. Get some TikTok stars in here. Yeah, Kris Bryant obviously was pulled out of the game against Cleveland on Tuesday, and that does happen when people get traded. It didn't feel like it was he got traded. It would be a weird.
That's what Twitter was exploding with, but
yes, and I think it's probably started like one person kind of joking with the hug watch thing, and then it was weird because you didn't see anything change with Kris Bryant, and it's weird to feel under the weather and then in the middle of the game feel so under the weather you're pulled out. I mean,
have you ever been so under the weather that you ripped a double?
No, I haven't. I don't think so.
I'm not questioning KB's being under the weather. It's just like it would be interesting. I mean, I guess that happens. You're feeling okay, and then all of a sudden you have like a stomach ache out of nowhere or something. Who knows?
Yeah, and Kris Bryant famously just plays through everything, especially injury-wise, sometimes to his own detriment. And the Cubs really should, at some point, get good at putting players on the injured list when they're injured. They keep wasting days and days. They did it again a little bit with Ian Happ this time. Let me just give a rundown of everyone who's injured right now. So Kris Bryant, under the weather, illness. We don't know. We don't know that he's going on the IL or anything. Jake Marisnick, Ian Happ, Nico Horner, Jake Arrieta, Trevor McGill, also the big reliever who came up, was very exciting. He is a little bit hurt right now. Dan Winkler. So just a huge amount of injuries right now. So Matt Duffy's been fine, but like we're looking at Matt Duffy hitting third in some of these lineups lately because of it.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Duffy. He's been a fantastic addition to this team that we would not have expected to have this sort of impact. Having said that, not who you want your number 3 hitter to be. And if you want any info about Cubs players being injured or how we feel about that, you can follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. How often do you dream about the Cubs, Kevin?
Sometimes, I would say. A trick I do for myself, I'm very not good at falling asleep. Never have been. But thinking about Cubs related stuff is a way I will just get myself to fall asleep, to sort of shut my brain off from like actual life problems, I think, or just like existential stuff. Just start thinking about lineups, just start thinking about that kind of stuff. So I'll more do it as on my way to sleep, but occasionally I will have a Cubs dream. Have you been having some?
I had one last night, and it was the first one in a while. Also, I hate having blood taken, and anytime I have a needle in my arm, I instinctually just run through the current standings of baseball divisions.
See, these are good things. Famously, thinking about baseball is how you don't end a sex session if you're trying to pull back.
You know what's so funny? That was one of my first bits ever as a comedian. The entire bit was that like they tell you if you want to like last longer in bed, you should think about baseball. But unfortunately for me, I love baseball, so it has the opposite effect. I come faster when I think about baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, double to the left. Yeah.
Oh baby.
This one's got a chance. It is funny that as baseball fans, we have taken the slow your roll sex thought, but applied it to other things, to not passing out while you have a needle in you, and yeah, and then for me just trying to fall asleep.
Well, I had a dream last night that it was weird because it was like I was, you know how people who have like VIP access get to like stand right behind home plate in batting practice? It
Hmm.
was like I had that access, but just while the game was going on.
Hmm.
And it was at Miller Park. I'm sorry, AmFam. And
Wow, good for you for I knew it wasn't Miller anymore, but I was struggling to, yeah, AmFam,
yes,
Christ.
what a name, AmFam, American Family, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was standing behind home plate and people just kept getting injured. And it was one of those times where I was like, as I woke up, I was like, it's very clear to me why this is floating around in my brain. Because there was a point, I swear to you, in the dream where Ildemaro Vargas got injured, and I was like, here we fucking go. And like, if that's where my brain is, there are too many people injured.
It's funny, yeah. Your brain, your dream brain is like in a bit of the way into a depth chart on terms of who's getting injured right now, and so yeah,
I love a specific obscure dream. Like I once had a dream that Jock Jones died in a car accident, which is very
yeah,
morbid and sad. And
right.
then I just internalized that into reality for like 6 months until I saw Jock Jones playing somewhere, and I was like, I guess that never happened.
That is weird. It's yeah, it's very weird to have like guys who aren't your favorite player or like aren't the most famous dude on the team, but in the case of like an Ildemaro Vargas, are on the team, weave their way into your dream enough so that you remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens when you do a Cubs podcast and tweet about it and they're rooting for the Cubs. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, it's just rattling around in there a lot. And the current Cubs roster kind of looks like a weird dream of sorts. Every couple of days, there's a reliever you haven't seen getting called up, and a lot of them have been exciting and fun to see. Welcome back to the Bigs, Brad Wick, by the way. He looked pretty good. But yeah, just like
After being part of a combined no hitter.
That's right. In the Iowa Cubs, and they almost went back to back, a team-wide Johnny Vandermeer nearly. They got 7 innings into the second game after the no-hitter without allowing a hit as well. So, yeah, Dakota
Team-wide Johnny Vandermeer. That's a fantasy team name waiting to happen.
Team-wide Vandermeers. Yeah, totally. Yeah, back-to-back no-hit guy. So yeah, it's been the lineup just looks like kind of absurd right now. It was already absurd with Kris Bryant playing center field. I mean, I think he hadn't played center field since his rookie year against the Pirates, and I like distinctly remember that. And then over the past week, Kris Bryant has just been the Cubs' regular starting center fielder. You know,
Right.
that's how many. That's how versatile Kris Bryant actually is, apparently, because you have 2 guys in Hayward and Jock who've both played center field in their career.
Right.
Before.
And I also want to point out that like that is sometimes when injuries happen, and like
Mhm.
in a like just imagining a scenario where instead of Hap getting hurt, it's Bryant in the exact same situation. Twitter would explode with people saying like, "Well, that happened because he's not a natural center fielder," and blah 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 blah.
Right, and to the best of our knowledge, Kris didn't get hurt out in center. Seems
Oh,
like
right. No, that's not. Yeah, but I'm
seems
just
like
saying
it's
like, right.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think yeah, guys playing out of position, and we've seen Nico Horner taking reps in left field, for instance. You know, this year too. This is guys. I think it does slightly raise the chance of getting injured when you're playing out of position, and this is just one of the issues. I see this with the roster overall, and then specifically in the starting rotation. This is the issue when you build a roster without real depth, when the depth is just backups all over the place. Like you're gonna have a couple guys get injured, and then your lineup looks like a mess. And then like with the starting rotation, if you don't have Hendricks pitching like an ace and everyone pitching to what their average season should be or slightly above,
Hmm.
it's just going to look like a mess because you don't have depth here. You basically, it's a roster full of just betting on best case scenarios if you want to be
Right.
a contender, and that's just not the best way to do it. So and we're coming off like a good week.
Yeah. I mean, there was a stretch. I mean, I know the Cubs were like 7-3 over the course of 10 in a stretch, and obviously had the the 5-game winning streak. And sure, when you're playing Pittsburgh, like you'd rather win more easily, but like you're still winning.
Hmm.
Um, is there a legal limit to the number of 3-2 outcomes you can have in a week? Is that like
No, you're always I think you're very good at picking up on numerical oddities and scores and things like that. You were very much on when the Cubs had not scored more than 5 runs for a long time. And then, yeah, it's been several.
I mean, 3 of the last 4 games have ended 3-2, which is
have
just
ended
weird.
3-2.
Yeah.
And then the other one was 6-5, right?
Right.
Yeah, against so it's several, after sweeping the Dodgers, taking 2 or 3 from Pittsburgh, and then losing 6-5 in Pittsburgh when tying run was on second. They made a strong comeback in the 9th.
Another Javi Mother's Day walk-off would have been incredible.
I know, when he walked up there with the pink bat. And Javi's been hurt too. Javi was in back tightness after he was really starting to trend up at the plate too. It was very frustrating, and frustrating for him too. But yeah, when I saw him take that pink bat out, I had a little hope, even though I knew I probably shouldn't have. And that's a game where Hendricks was coming off the 7 innings, 1 run performance against the Dodgers. And then he gives up 4 runs in the first against the Pirates. And Hendricks has been awful in the first inning this year. But that, if you didn't see it, or if you didn't go back and look at it, it looks a lot worse than it is. Several of those runs probably scored because Marisnik couldn't get to a soft pop-up because he pulled his hamstring really badly. And besides that, there was almost no legitimate contact. It was just things falling in, and the Pirates just babbipped and lucked their way into 4 runs, but it still counts,
Yeah, you feel bad for Marisnik because he has played well, and it was literally like the Forrest Gump, like something bit me, sort of like.
Yeah, it seemed like he was doing an impression of pulling a hamstring, and it sucks because, man, he's been one of the more fun signings this year, and him and Duffy are good examples. And it's easy to say when they're both performing well, but even if they weren't, they're good examples of signing depth guys for a specific purpose to fit with your team. Like we said, Marisnik is basically an upgrade on Almora in that he has more speed. He's similarly very good defensively, and he has a little more power. So it's you upgrade a couple of those things there. Great. That's an upgrade to your 4th outfielder. And then Duffy is a guy who I don't think you banked on being a starter every day, but a guy who brings contact to a lineup that otherwise doesn't have it. So those are, I think those were smart signings at the time, and they've worked out that way. But
also hope Almora's okay. Did you see that?
Yes.
Jesus.
He tweeted afterwards. He tweeted, "I caught it." Almora basically smoked himself into the center field wall, and he did have the ball in his glove for a second. But a lot of people on Twitter, I saw like a lot of big accounts being like, "I've never seen anyone hit a wall that hard."
I was at a game at Citi Field, and I couldn't actually see it because I was sitting in what was at that time the Pepsi porch in like the right field bleachers, where David DeJesus slammed into the wall and left the game. I don't remember if you were at that game. It was around your birthday. It was, I don't know, 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, I might not have been. It doesn't stand out, but
yeah, as we know, Almora doesn't give up on the baseball. I remember there being a time where he caught a ball in Cincinnati, like stumbling backwards, and like if he had fallen at a different point, he could have like broken his back on the wall. Like he goes all out.
Yeah, he's going to, and I know people make fun of online a little bit about him like diving when he doesn't need to dive, or sliding when it seems like he doesn't need to slide. And I think there's, you probably see some of that, but also it's like there's nothing eyewash about what he did there, last night. Like he had to go full speed to catch up to the ball. He did. He got it in his glove, and just there was no way to slow down. And we like Almora. And as we can tell you, as Adam and I both living in Queens and sort of a little more privy than most to Mets media and Mets coverage and stuff, the Mets fans are pro Albert Almora. So that's nice. They pretty much every Met fan I've seen is rooting for, it wants him to get more of the playing time than Kevin Pillar. Is the main comparison there. So that's so good for Al. Hopefully he's healthy.
You know who's starting at Citi Field against the Mets today?
I don't.
Matt Harvey. for the Warriors.
Wow. The
Yeah.
Dark Knight Returns, baby.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would buy a ticket to that game. If I had
Mhm.
time, I would go over to Citi Field.
It would be, yeah. I There was such a brief window of time when Matt Harvey starts had a real buzz about him here,
Yeah.
in New York too. He was one of the buzzy, and they've had some buzzy pitchers over the years, but like when Matt Harvey was really dealing, that was an exciting thing. So,
Yeah. Um, anyway, back to the team that we like to talk about.
mhm.
What are your takeaways after the past week of games? Are you feeling like more optimistic, or are we just kind of looking at a team that's going to be up and down and 500, and then even guys like Matt Duffy get traded?
Yeah, I think this is a team that is built to be right around 500, and I think the last week has been encouraging because it's really fun to beat the Dodgers. That was very fun. And I think we were seeing the team perform a little closer to the average of what they should be. Like, we're seeing less guys in deep, deep offensive funks, for
Hmm.
instance. Like we're starting to see some balls land in the outfield and some hits fall in. So it's feeling like there's a little more hope to these games, too. I think, yeah, with the roster is currently constructed, I think you're going to have good streaks and bad streaks, and it's sort of just a game of musical chairs in terms of where it ends up. Like, are you going to end up 5 games above 500? Or are you going to end up 5 games below 500?
Right.
And I think, I mean, I don't know what you think or what you were betting on, but like to me, it seems like the Cubs would have to be doing a lot better than that for them to not try to deal at the deadline. Um,
Yeah,
in a
I
big
agree.
in a big way.
Well, it feels like that old adage about like every team's going to win 60, every team's going to lose 60, and it's like the 50 games in the middle that are going to make the
Our boy
difference
Dale
of like.
Swaim, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
said
This
that.
team feels like you're going to win 80, you're going to lose 80, and it's those 2 games in the middle
Yeah,
might make all the difference.
yeah, that's a
Because
good
82
call.
and 80 is going to win the division, but 80 and 82 is just not going to get it done.
No, that's good. Yeah, you're gonna be fourth. Yeah. So it's weird, and it's just like It's hard to see what real big returns you could get on anything when the Cubs just dealt 3 years of a Cy Young contender for 4 teenagers. So it's I don't even think selling would be the wrong move from this roster
Hmm.
at the All-Star break or anytime starting now, really. But I just it's hard to see what they would get that would actually make this team appreciably better going forward. So I
I
mean that
don't,
yeah.
yeah, I don't disagree, but like, let's say that the Twitter rumors were true and that Kris Bryant gets pulled from a game and somehow gets traded this early, which is like unheard of. But let's just
Mm.
say that he does, and that given how good he's been, you get some sort of like return that the Cubs or that the Yankees got for Aroldis Chapman when they traded him to the Cubs.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that, or are you still team like I do not want to see this guy traded under any circumstances?
I don't want to see him traded. I would be okay with it if I could look into the future and say it's exactly the Aroldis Chapman situation, where the Cubs get a starter going forward. And by the way, Gleyber Torres, after becoming an All-Star, has been really rough in this
Hmm.
year. And
Yeah, Addison Russell was an All-Star too.
absolutely, yeah, super young he was, and same with Gleyber. So. Even that's not like a fully known quantity. But the main thing that that I would like about an Aroldis Chapman deal is that the Yankees then signed Aroldis Chapman back. So if
Right.
the Cubs, if you could tell me the Cubs would deal Kris Bryant right now, not have Kris Bryant at all the rest of the year, get a sort of what Gleyber was probably, I think he was a top 25, top 50 prospect at that time in baseball. Get one of those in a larger package,
Hmm.
and then signed Kris Bryant back at the end of the year, yeah, absolutely, I would do that. I would.
Yeah.
But I think that so rarely happens that you trade a guy away and then sign him back at the end of the year that if it would lessen the chances of signing Kris Bryant, and I don't know how much the chances are anyway. So, if it would eliminate the chance of them signing Kris Bryant long term, which is something I think they should do, then no, I wouldn't. How do you feel about that?
So I got a text from a friend of mine yesterday saying like, is KB getting traded? And I had not been watching the game at that time, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And then he was like, yeah, he got pulled in the game, and no one knows if he's actually injured, whatever. yeah, my gut feeling was like, no, don't.
Yeah.
I love this guy. Please don't do that. Like,
Hmm.
how many jerseys am I supposed to not wear to games anymore? Like, I
Right.
guess I'd still
Right.
wear a Schwarber jersey, but point being, like, I am emotionally attached to those guys. Like, I knew that not every player from 2016 was gonna, I'm not as emotionally attached to Chris Coughlin as I am to the two guys who had the ball in their gloves to make our dreams come true. Like, I don't want to see Bryant and Rizzo playing on other teams. I just don't. And I know you can't have everybody, and that doesn't, you're not going to be able to sign everyone to an extension. But like, you may disagree with me here, but I feel like I'm more attached to Bryant and Rizzo than I am even to Javi. Like, if I had to pick like two of that whole core, I feel like Bryant and Rizzo would be the guys.
Yeah, I almost it changes by the day for me,
Yeah.
really, in terms of where I'm at emotionally. And then where I'm at from a baseball sense, I guess uh I guess it depends on what the money is for all these guys because we don't know what deal would get it done. So there's probably different combinations of dollars that would change. First of all, I think not retaining Anthony Rizzo is a sign of organizational incompetence and detachment from what the meaning of that guy is and what his value is as a baseball player. That I think it's just disqualifying. It would be hard for
Mhm.
me to respect the Jed ownership, whatever, in any way really going forward. Not
Yeah.
retaining Anthony Rizzo, I think that it's embarrassing that hasn't happened already. But beyond that, if we're saying you have to pick one between Kris and Javi, I mean, it's when healthy, Kris Bryant is a genuine MVP level player, top five. And Javi finished
Yeah.
runner up in the MVP once, and I mean, I think that's more of a case of, in terms of what I feel comfortable with, I think that felt more like an offensive peak for Javi, and I think he can get close to that year again. I mean, we're as of 2 days ago, Javi was one of two players who was top 10 in the majors in both home runs and steals. So I mean, like, he still has that talent going forward, and when we say you can't extend everybody, that I guess that's true, but you can extend all three of those guys. The
Hmm.
Cubs do have the money for this. There's no money on the books after this year going forward. Basically, they could
Right.
extend all three at market value. They could. We don't think they will, but they could. So I don't want to let them off the hook that way. But yeah, I mean, like, I think if you tell me who do I feel is a safer investment in terms of the value you're getting back on the field going forward between Kris Bryant and Javi, I probably would say Kris Bryant. But that doesn't, I mean, but when we're talking about Kris Bryant, we're talking about, when healthy, a top 10 player in Major League Baseball.
Hmm.
And I mean, he's showing us that again. He was leading the NL in WAR as of a couple of days ago, and we've already seen this guy start at most of the positions on the field and become your starting center fielder. So I don't know what else you'd want in a player who they were lucky to get at the second overall spot in the draft, and besides like an injured year and a half, basically, has exceeded those expectations. There's no safer. I just don't know what other kind of a player you want if you're not going to extend Kris Bryant.
Yeah. I mean, I still would have drafted Mark Appel, but I'm a big Appel guy.
I mean, Appel making a comeback, by the way. He's
Oh, is he? Good
he
for
had
him.
retired, and he got to start the other day, I think. Yeah. And the guy who was drafted third in that draft is kind of having a breakout right now too. John Gray, who apparently the Cubs was the other guy the Cubs were considering there. But think of that: the guy who was third, who was coming out of Oklahoma throwing 100, he's kind of having a breakout now. Kris Bryant won the MVP 5 years ago, and they're the same
Yeah.
age. You know what I mean? Yeah. Kris Bryant is one of those guys who's, I think, been underrated even by Cubs fans the whole time, and probably just will be.
Right. Now you mentioned pitching a bit, and obviously there's some injuries going on. How did you feel about Alzolay last night?
Alzolay, what I like best, so he went 6 innings, gave up 3 runs, which is that line is the bare minimum of what is considered a quality start. So you look at it and it's like, okay, that's a 4.5 ERA. That's more or less, fine.
I feel
Um,
like quality starts exist in comedy too, by the way. Like, there's definitely times where I get off stage and I'm like, I did my job.
I
I
absolutely
didn't
agree.
kill, but I did what I was here to do.
I think as far as headlining on the road, I am an absolute quality start
You're a real
machine.
Steve Traxel of a road
Every
comic.
yeah, everyone every once in a while I'm taking a no hitter into the eighth, like a Steve Traxel could do. But like, yeah, you're getting 6 and 3 runs from me, for the most part. Um, yeah, I think Adbert went 6 innings, 3 runs against the Indians, which is fine. But if you look at it more closely, I think it was 5 strikeouts, no walks,
Mhm.
and without one pitch that was after a completely nasty slider. He left the slider a little bit up to Cesar Hernandez, which ended up in a homer there. Without that one pitch, it's a great start. And the most encouraging thing is we've seen him run out of gas just at the very end in every one of his starts so far.
Mhm.
Like his line has typically been great, and then he gives up a couple runs at the end, or he leaves a couple runners on. They end up scoring. And so his numbers don't look as good as we've seen him look.
Yeah.
What I liked was he gave up that homer in the 5th, came back in the 6th, was still hitting 94 on the fastball, and shut down the Cleveland lineup in that last inning. So I thought that was like super encouraging to see.
Yeah, I was more encouraged by him than I was by the offense. Now, needless to say, you're going up against Shane Bieber, who is one of the best pitchers on the planet, but
Yeah.
like they had a lot of opportunities. And I guess that's one of those situations where it's like, do you give credit to Bieber for making the pitch he needs to make to get out of that situation, or do you bemoan the lack of like situational hitting by the Cubs?
Yeah, and it's both, right? Because it's hard to
There's no
hit.
shame in losing to Shane Bieber.
No, there isn't, but you have to convert some chances. And we've seen that happen a couple times for the Cubs in the last week. I mean, it was the game against the Dodgers and Trevor Bauer, right, where they were 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to perform at an average level when you get guys in scoring position.
Right.
Like you don't have to dominate, but have a 240 batting average when guys are in scoring position,
Right.
and they just weren't. They just were completely shut down, it seemed.
Right. It always feels like the Cubs are on the wrong side of things that feel like they should be statistically impossible. Like
Yes.
you want them to do the thing that it's like, well, I mean, what are the chances that they're going to hit like 4 homers in a row? It's always like, literally, what are the odds of going 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position in a game? Like, it's very, very small.
Extraordinarily low, yeah. And I mean, the Cubs were, and that's a thing where sometimes you can just feel that way because you're the fan of the team. So it's slanted. Like whenever anything bad happens, you're like, oh, of course, when statistically it's closer to average. But this year with this Cubs lineup, the first few weeks of the year, the first like 2.5, 3 weeks, it was historically bad. So it
Yeah.
was one of those things we have already with this team seen this offense be bad in a way that is improbable, like
Mhm.
significantly improbable. So we've seen that, and even within a good week, we saw that a couple of times, both against high-end pitchers, Bauer and Bieber. But yeah, it was very frustrating to see them not take advantage of getting the chances against Cleveland. And one thing, like Jack Peterson looked bad against Bieber twice, I think, but also he smoked the ball right back at Bieber. He had a hit through the shift later. I'm enjoying that Jock is looking a little better right
Yeah,
now.
and he looked very good in a game that he was not expecting to play in on Sunday. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not an easy thing to do, to like come right into a game when you probably were told that you had an off day.
Yeah, I think Jock's starting to feel it a little bit, which is really good. And I mean, when Jack Peterson gets hot, he gets really hot. I
Yeah.
mean,
He's a real like ad drop fantasy sort of guy.
yes, you can ride that streak.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like he's a guy who was he if the Dodgers had won in 2017, he probably would have been the World Series MVP. And like, they Dodgers fans started Jocktober as a thing because
Yeah.
he just happened to he got hot in the playoffs. And it's nice to see him coming around a little bit because I mean, in terms of trades that might actually get you something that feels like the right amount of value, I think you'd be looking at instead of. I just don't think the Cubs are going to get what a Kris Bryant trade deserves, but dealing Jock at the deadline on a 1-year
Yeah.
deal or dealing Craig Kimbrell, who just looks amazing, dealing either of those guys could maybe get you something in a year if you feel like you're not going anywhere anyway, you know.
Also, shout out to Jock Peterson on what I can only describe as the best pimp job of a flyout since I thought I saw Sammy Sosa hit his 500th home run at Shea Stadium and the wind knocked it down.
Oh,
Because he
God.
hopped like a motherfucker and then Cliff Floyd caught it and I was devastated.
Sammy got to a point where he was hopping everything, you know, at the end, just in case. But yeah, Jack turned, he hit that fly ball, turned and yelled to the dugout, which he's very swaggy. I enjoy his enthusiasm, and he seems to really have a good energy with the guys in that dugout. But
And
man,
Jansen thought he gave it up too. Like, it's not like it was just Jock.
Right.
But maybe he was reacting to Jock's reaction. Who knows?
I think that was part of it. And it didn't even quite get to the warning track. But you know, it's been a while since Jack hit a bomb. So I understand that, you know, it's a little confusing. And the wind blowing in at Wrigley can be can make it a real pitcher's park.
I think the general rule should be like, don't even risk pimping a home run at Wrigley pre-June.
Yes. Typically speaking, I think that's a good rule. But now I want Jock to pimp every sac fly. If a guy's on third and you know you kind of got it, flip it to the moon. That's your new thing.
I mean, that's a real yachty move, so I don't know if I want to endorse that.
Sure.
Pimping a sac fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, respect the game, you know. Here's a news and note. The Cubs have signed. So we saw Keegan Thompson make his debut. He looked pretty good. The stuff plays up well. The cutter at 91-92 looks great. This could be a possible rotation guy going forward. But one thing to watch out, as Sahadev Sharma pointed out, he has the lowest percentage of swinging strikes in the majors. Out of 100, like only two swinging strikes so far out of I believe 111 out of 111.
There you go, being on the wrong side of a statistical oddity.
Yeah, exactly. So that's something to watch out for. Hopefully he can tweak something, get a few more swings and misses. But speaking of Thompsons, the Cubs have added another. I don't know if you saw this. They just, since every outfielder for the Cubs has died, they have Trace Thompson, who is Klay Thompson's brother. And
interesting.
Former White Sox prospect, and they got him for cash considerations. It's weird. It's weird to call it cash considerations because it's like, it's just cash. What do you mean? What are we considering? It's the money. You were considering money. It's money.
For my basketball podcast, Horse, check it out if you like basketball.
Yes,
we one of our merch items that we give our like patrons is a jersey that says Horse on the front and the name on the back says cash considerations.
There you go. So it's one of these. So the Cubs got Klay Thompson's brother to play some outfield. So maybe we'll see him soon. Him, and I would like to see Cameron Maben up if we have no outfielders.
I hope he plays so well that people start calling Klay Thompson Trace Thompson's brother.
I mean, I don't know. He would have to hit 6 homers in a game a couple of times, I feel like. But yes, I also hope for this.
Yeah. You have anything else?
Well, since we said Keegan Thompson wasn't getting anyone to swing and miss, we'll point out that Justin Steele is getting everyone to swing and miss. He's striking out people at a 36% rate, only walking.
I think 15 through his first 9 innings pitch, something like that.
Yeah, Justin Steele looks really good. He looks really strong, and this is
looks good in pink too.
Yeah, he's working the Mother's Day colors totally.
That's a Mr. Steal Your Girl Players Weekend uniform right there.
He brought it back. He is the former Instagram handle of Mr. Steal Your Girl. He has changed it now. But yes, that was absolutely that look. Justin Steele just looks really good. He looks like that's just a guy you want in that bullpen going forward. And it seems like they're committing to him as a bullpen guy as opposed to a starter, which fine, you know, like this is a bullpen guy I want in my bullpen, but you know, that kind of stuff, it's like it does make you wonder. Since he was a guy who was raised as a starter.
Yeah. He is who the Cubs wanted Justin Wilson to be when they traded for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's just he looks great. So that's been a big bright
friend
spot.
of the pod, shout out.
friend of the pod, shout out. And if you're not watching minor league baseball, go get an MILB.TV subscription. It's only $40, and I think if you use the promo code Pelicans, it still gets you down to $30. I got
and that $40 pays a full salary for a minor league ball player, so you're contributing to a good cause.
Yeah, it pays you. Well, you gift the Cubs a minor leaguer, gift a team in need
for just $1 a day.
Yes,
you too can support. Just like a video of like sad minor leaguers with that guy from that commercial.
Yeah, that basically is minor league salary. So use that to check it out. All the Cubs affiliates have cameras in their parks, so you get to see a lot of it. And Cam Sanders, helium alert, pitcher who's getting up to 90, 98, 99. Crazy curveball. The swag on his post strikeout walks is fun as hell. He has a few different walks.
Jeffress-esque, I would say.
Yes. Well, yeah, I could see that. So there's fun stuff to watch on the farm.
And our boy DJ also made his first start.
Who made his first start?
DJ Hers.
DJ Hers, yes, DJ Hers, who we interviewed earlier this week, made his first start in Myrtle Beach, and he looked good. He had threw 2 good innings, so follow DJ Hers as well. And we're doing more player interviews all the time. We've got some up. We interviewed Brendan Davis, DJ Hers. We got Duncan Robinson coming up. We've got and more to come. So follow that, I guess. Anything else from you, Adam? Anything looking forward?
Not too much. There's a chance I may be at a Cubs Cardinals game in St. Louis next weekend.
That's crazy.
So I'll keep everyone posted. I know you went to a Yankees Astros game. I don't know if you brought a small trash can, but I hope you enjoyed yourself.
No, I just looked at them. And there was one. Most of the Yankee fans are pretty good. There's one real dipshit who got up in an Astro fan's face, just screaming at him, and eventually threw a beer can at him and was thrown out of the game. I don't think we need to tell anybody listening to this. If you do that, you're a pussy. You are a real dipshit like this guy was. And
also, beer is like $18. What a waste.
It was a large Bud Light. And then he was pretending he didn't do it. So it's just like, no one thinks you're cool. And don't start fights with other fans just because they're a fan of the other team. If they're being a dipshit, sure, you can yell back at them. But no one... If you're starting shit with someone just because they're in another jersey and being a real aggressive dick about it, that we just know your dick don't work. Like, that's what you're telling the world. It's the loud, it's the revving the car at the red light of the world. Don't be that guy. So that was my experience at the Yankee game. And most of the Yankee fans were good, and they were booing the right people and laying off the others, except for this guy who was just, what I described, picture him. That's what it looked like. He looked like a boiled egg. He's just a fat, bald dumbass, and don't be that kind of a guy.
I'm just picturing like Bobby Kelly.
Honestly, physically, it wasn't Bobby Kelly, but physically, it's pretty close. Yeah, but yeah, enjoy St. Louis if you do get that game.
Thank you. Yeah, and hopefully you and I will attend a game sometime soon. Maybe we'll go to a Mets game, go to a Yankees game.
Sure.
Who knows?
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll have a good time.
Follow us at Away Games Pod, Twitter and Instagram, and we'll have interviews dropping in between the normal Wednesday episodes, but otherwise we'll be back next week.